Hey everyone, and welcome. So, have you ever noticed how your quietest friend suddenly becomes the life of the party after a couple of drinks? Or how someone else might get super emotional or even kind of aggressive? Well, today, we're digging into a really fascinating idea. What if alcohol isn't changing who they are, but actually revealing who they are? This quote right here, it really nails the whole idea we're exploring. The theory is that getting drunk doesn't invent a new personality. Nope. It just strips away all the social filters, the stress, and the self-control, and it shows you the person who is hiding underneath the whole time. So we're gonna walk through 6 common drunk archetypes to help us, read the signs. We're gonna ask the big question, what is that uninhibited behavior really telling you about who that person is when they're sober? Let's figure it out. Okay, let's start with 2 archetypes that are usually misunderstood, but are pretty much harmless. These are the folks whose drunken behavior might actually point to a quiet strength or a really joyful way of coping with life. First up, the sleepy drunk. I think we all know one of these. They have a drink or two, they're part of the conversation, and then boom, like clockwork, they find the nearest comfy chair and they're out. No drama, no fuss, just zzz. So what's really going on here? This isn't about being a party pooper. It's actually about a kind of quiet, powerful self-control. This is likely someone who carries a ton of pressure in their day-to-day life, but they manage it all internally. They don't complain. They know their limits, and their peaceful exit is a sign of that discipline. It's like the part of their brain that's always on finally gets permission to just shut down. Now, where the sleepy drunk finds release in being still, our next archetype finds it in pure motion. Let's talk about the dancing drunk. The second a good song comes on, it's like all their worries just melt away, and they are on that dance floor. They're not putting on a show, they are just lost in the music. And here's the really important part. This is not about getting attention, it's about finding release. When they're sober, this is someone who feels things really, really deeply. But instead of talking through their stress, they cope by tapping into joy and movement. Honestly, it's a pretty healthy way to deal with the weight of the world. All right, let's move on to our next pair. And this is where things start to get a little complicated. These behaviors can look like a real search for connection, but sometimes they're actually hiding something else, like immaturity or a deep-seated neediness.
The emotional caller. You've either made this call or you've gotten it. It's 3 in the morning and bam, your phone rings. It's them, calling an ex or a friend and just pouring out every single unfiltered thought and feeling they've ever had.
Look, here's the thing. This isn't true vulnerability. It's more like a performance of it, one that's only possible when their inhibitions are gone. The alcohol is just bringing all the stuff to the surface that their sober self works so hard to push down. Unresolved issues, emotional immaturity. It shows you a person who hasn't really learned how to process their feelings in a healthy way. They're not healed, they're just masked. From the person looking for an emotional outlet, we go to the person looking for constant validation. This one can be tricky to read, the flirty drunk. All of a sudden, they are impossibly charming, maybe a little too touchy, and they have this crazy skill for saying just enough to keep you totally hooked. Now, some people are just naturally playful, for sure, but a lot of the time, this kind of behavior points to something much deeper. Their sober self might be dealing with a serious emotional void, a lack of self-worth that they try to patch up with attention from other people. Attention literally becomes their currency, a quick fix for a much bigger feeling of emptiness. And when that need is so huge, boundaries can get real blurry real fast. Okay, we need to shift gears here. The next 2 archetypes, they're not just misunderstood, they can be serious red flags. This is where the mask comes off and reveals something a lot more troubling. A whole lot of bottled up anger and some deep, deep insecurity. We've all seen this person, and their energy can just poison an entire room. The voice gets louder, arguments start over absolutely nothing, and maybe a glass gets accidentally broken. It's disruptive, it's unsettling, and it makes everyone uncomfortable. Let's be crystal clear about this one. That is not the alcohol talking. That is pure bottled up anger, resentment, and rage finally bubbling over. It's a huge sign that in their sober life, they have 0 tools to handle conflict or frustration in a healthy way. So they just suppress it, letting it boil under the surface until a little alcohol dissolves their self-control. This is a massive warning sign. Now, from outward aggression, we move to a different kind of troubling behavior, inward insecurity. Let me introduce our final archetype,
the boastful drunk. After a few drinks, that humble person you thought you knew is gone, replaced by someone who cannot stop bragging about their job, their car, their accomplishments, anything and everything.
This isn't real confidence. It's the exact opposite. It's a fragile, hollow shell of confidence that they build to cover up a giant pit of insecurity. Their sober self is so terrified of being seen as less than that they need constant validation. But here's the tell. They also run from any real accountability. If they admitted to a flaw, it would shatter that fragile image they've built. So they just brag and brag to keep everyone focused on this perfect, fictional version of themselves.
So we've watched 6 different masks fall off. From the quietly strong to the deeply insecure, every one of these behaviors tells a story about the person underneath. Let's just put it all together real quick. Okay, so here's our map. On one end, you've got harmless release, the sleepy drunk managing their pressure, and the dancer coping through pure joy. In the middle, you see a kind of cry for connection, the caller's hidden immaturity and the flirt's emotional void. And then, at the other end, you have the big red flags, the aggressive drunk's bottled up anger and the boaster's crushing insecurity. Each one is a little window into their sober self. And that leads us to the final and probably the most important question. The next time you see someone's personality completely transform with alcohol, don't just write it off. Ask yourself, what is this showing me about who they really are? Because when that mask finally comes off, you might be getting the most honest look you'll ever get at the person you're dealing with.